Okay, welcome everyone to the February 11th Funding Impact Measurement Working Group. As always, the working group is under the CHAOSS Code of Conduct, so keep that in mind and please be kind to each other. We have a few things on the agenda today. So we have a co-chairs update, and then Alexandros is going to talk about some research, so that'll be interesting. And then we have a couple of other agenda items if we have time towards the end about FOSDEM and then the practitioner funding impact measurement practitioner guide. With that, I think Paul, did you want to take over and facilitate since you've got the first bit?
Yep, happily,
Yeah.
will do. So we have an update from our side, which is, I think, a combination of, let's say, some sad news, but also some very good news. So we've seen a bit of a change in the formation of our co-chairs. Killian Osborne has left because he started a new position that will take up a lot of his time. And so Dawn and I were left with thinking about who we'd like to join as another co-chair. And we invited Adrian, who's with us today, who has very kindly accepted to join, which we're very thrilled about and excited about. It's obviously a very natural fit, given Adrian's position at LF as Director of Quantitative Research and also past involvement presenting work on multiplier effects with NGI Commons. I'll give over the space to Adrian in just a second to say a couple of words, but before that, I wanted to share a message from Killian, who very kindly recorded a little farewell, which means that we're going to be in the interesting position of playing a recording from Jitsi on Zoom that is itself going to be recorded. So we're going to have several layers of sort of abstraction here, and let's see how the video quality holds out. But yeah, I'll share my screen and let Killian say a few words, and then I'll hand over to you, Adrian. Okay. Hope you can all hear this.
We're not hearing it, Paul.
Oh no. Sorry. Bear with me. Maybe what I'll do is I might I will see if I can post this in the chat somehow.
Yes, sure.
That might be better. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Shame. Okay, well in that case I'll hand over to you, Adrian. Apologies for the technical difficulties.
No worries. No worries. Just as a first thing, thank you so much, Don and Paul, for thinking of me. And it is really a great opportunity. I was telling to them already that this working group has given me a lot of motivation actually and was very beneficial to the work that I'm doing at NGI Commons. So thank you for that. And Circuit and Alexandros, you're both were very active members of this and helped a lot even until now. So now I'm very excited to continue this as co-chair and hopefully collaborate with all of you, invite interesting speakers and discuss much more about the impact of funding. Hi, Gerardo.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Adrian. And yeah, welcome aboard from everyone. Wonderful. I think with that, we will turn to Alexandros to present his latest research project. I think for those of you who were with us last year, you'll remember that Alexandros presented last autumn and has a bit of a follow-up. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Alexandros.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Make the screen share work. Does that work?
Yep, we're seeing you. Your slides.
All right. So thanks first giving me the opportunity to talk about this second piece of research I've conducted or I've submitted in end of January, which hopefully is relevant to that group. So yeah, the title of that work is Why Authors and Maintainers Link or Don't Link Their Piper Libraries to Code Repositories and Donation Platforms. And as we focus on the funding side or the donation platform side of this paper, also the presentation kind of focuses on that part. If you want to kind of read up the other parts, I also linked the paper, also provided the replication package in case you want to dig into the pipeline we used for analyzing these answers. So where does this research come from? So as Paul correctly said, this is a follow-up on a quantitative analysis I've presented in October, November, somewhere in autumn, correct? So where we analyzed to what extent PyPy libraries link to donation platforms on PyPy and GitHub, and basically, yeah, some suspicious patterns came to our mind, and we wanted to basically understand what's going on there. So the paper is basically following up on some of these insights you get from these information here in the figures and the quote. First, we basically wanted to understand why people use, meaning the gray and the orange bar, which is actually, or part, which is actually pretty small. So we wanted to understand why they do link to donation platforms, but also understand, in my opinion, even more important, the big blue part, why they don't link to donation platforms with all the benefits we are aware of. So these are basically the first two questions, as we will see on the next slide. And then here in this next graph, noting that this is a log scale, we saw that basically most of the links were found on GitHub exclusively. Kind of raising the question why maintainers basically do not provide the information on PyPy as well, given the information that they already linked their GitHub repository. So they did the work linking their GitHub repository, but did not basically make this follow-up step to link their donation platform, which is then provided on GitHub. So we were not sure about this part. So we wanted to understand this huge dominance of GitHub. And then the last question arises from the fact that quite a lot of these GitHub sponsors URLs, which were either linked on PyPy or on GitHub themselves, were outdated. Also raising the question why people basically don't use their time or update these URLs at all. That led to the following problem and research questions. As I mentioned before, you might wonder, why do these research questions start with 3 and 4 and not with 1 and 2? And this is basically because I copied that from the paper, meaning if you go back to the paper and you try to map what you have seen in the presentation to the paper content, I wanted to basically stay consistent there. So if you read about the research questions targeting the repository URLs, they would start with the numbering of 1 and 2. So first question, as I mentioned, is about the question why they do link to donation platforms. Second question was then about the question of this dominance of GitHub, meaning why they did not add the URL on PyPy, but exclusively on GitHub. Third question was about the GitHub sponsor URLs being outdated. And the last question, in my opinion, one of the most important ones here, is why they are not linking this information. To provide you some insights about the methodology we applied here. So as you probably expected, we needed to get the contact information of maintainers and authors of PyPy packages, meaning we at the point in time, it started in June 24. We basically crawled all the packages available on the Python package index, and then extracted the email addresses from these packages via an official endpoint, which are voluntarily provided by the author and maintainers of these packages. What we then did is basically in a sequential pattern to create two independent surveys targeting these authors and maintainers regarding the topics of repository URLs and donation platform URLs, where both of these surveys basically base their questions on these each on the quantitative results. As we've seen before, these surveys were then published between the dates you can read here. And in total, for both of these surveys, we got over 1,400 responses to these surveys, which break down for the repository URL survey, we contacted randomly 50,000 of these maintainers, where almost 6,000 were basically not deliverable, then leading to almost 1,400 responses, leading to a response rate of 3.1%, which is pretty good in these qualitative research area. We also asked basically these maintainers if we would be allowed to follow up for further research. And this is then where we sequentially contacted the maintainers regarding the donation platform survey, where we had the allowance of 570 people to recontact them, where only 2 bounce, and we got 67 responses, which, if you consider that in isolation, is a response rate of 11.8%. If you look at these numbers from the perspective of this working group, it's of course a pity that we contacted the maintainers in that order and not the other way around, because for the first survey we got way more responses, as we were allowed to basically recontact or to contact way more Python maintainers. Regarding the survey in general, we used open text questions to basically capture maintainers' motivations and barriers beyond predefined answer options. So we wanted to kind of evoke the creativity of these maintainers and not kind of list the things the research had already in mind, or we would come up as options. Moving further to the basically the analysis and the pipeline we used to analyze all these answers. So we created a LLM-based topic modeling pipeline using a local Llama 3.3 instance with 70 billion parameters. We used batch prompting to extract these topics with, at the end, a topic deduplication step to kind of control granularity of these resulting topics. We evaluated the whole approach by repeating the pipeline 30 times and then measuring basically the extracted topics based on lexical similarity, but also semantic similarity, in order to identify basically instances where the wording has slightly changed in the topic, but the meaning has stayed the same. And then in the end, as for these LLM-based topic modeling approaches, these traditional evaluation mechanisms don't work anymore. We also applied or validated our approach with 23 human experts on multiple dimensions, where we basically asked them about interpretability, relevance, granularity, and the duplication of the topic modeling of the topics basically identified from our approach. So maybe to give you a quick insight about the statistics of the survey answers. So for each of the survey we considered in the paper, we had basically 4 questions. What is pretty interesting that even though basically the number of responses varies significantly between the 2 surveys, the mean character length of the answers stayed basically on average the same and was also within this traditional tweet limit, which is referred to as working well with for short phrase, short-term topic modeling approaches identified in related work. What is to note here as we focus on the donation platform URL, that there are questions, especially the second and the third, which are not answered that much. But as I mentioned before, I think it is especially important to understand why people do not link these URLs. And this is basically the most answered question as well. So even though maybe the results from question 2 and 3 should be basically used with caution. The most important answers to the question 4 are there in a pretty decent number. What is basically the outcome of this whole topic modeling pipeline? So you can think about that in the following manner. So you basically get all the answers. Then you basically provide the LLM with a question, a prompt, which you can read in the paper if you want. And then basically by using batches of the answers, discovered topics, as you can see them on the right, are identified. And this is more or less the direct output of the pipeline. So I think the only thing which comes differently is that there are underscores in the discovered topics if you directly consume them from the pipeline. But this is basically the output you get, and then you basically can have these results for each question separately. Because of time, I would not go through each of the questions and each of the topic now separately, but rather discuss our takeaways and implications for this working group on an aggregated level in the end. To also give you some insights about the robustness and the human evaluation results we analyzed in the paper. Wanted to show you these 2 tables. So what we can clearly see is that we basically created a pipeline which is pretty robust against the execution of multiple runs. So as I said, we executed each pipeline with the 2 surveys 30 times. And what was always achieved, that the cosinus similarity, meaning the semantic similarity, was higher than the jacket similarity, meaning that there are instances where you have some small syntactical changes in the identified topics, but the semantics actually did not change drastically. So even if you execute this pipeline 30 times for both surveys, you get almost like a 90% of the same results. What is also pretty promising about the approach is the quality the human experts evaluated the topics on. And what is basically important to see here is this red marked line where we first ask the human raters if basically the identified topic is interpretable, is fitting the question, and is basically on the right granularity, meaning it's not too specific, and actually 77% for the or 75% for the donation platform URL survey agreed that 75% of these topics basically met all these three quality criteria, and actually only a low number of instances were defined as uninterpretable or not fitting the question or being too specific. There were some doubt about topics being duplicates, which is basically indicated by this last number. What is pretty good, that if you basically calculate the inter-rater agreement between all these human raters, you get like a moderate agreement between these humans, which makes our approach and the results pretty confident. Moving to the last part, which is probably the most important slide for this group. So what were the key learnings if we focus on the answers and the topics we extracted from the donation platform survey? So if we start with the first point, the motivations to link these donation platforms are mixed. So it ranges from altruistic reasons supporting OSS, and of course the basically desire to get direct financial incentives or support. But we, as I said before, we need to be a bit skeptical, or we need to take these results a bit with caution, as the adoption is pretty rare. And as we applied random sampling, basically when selecting the authors and maintainers targeted for participation, only a small minority in the end does include these donation platform links, meaning that these motivations we got here might not be fully representative. What we saw that donation platforms are often added only on GitHub due to higher visibility and referral strategies. So apparently the value on GitHub for the maintainers are higher to place it there compared to PyPy. Apparently there is like technical difficulty, lack of knowledge, and simple oversight as reasons which prevent them to add these links also on PyPy. There is skepticism towards monetization, employer compensation, or organizational policies, or also simply I don't meet these things, which limit the adoption, meaning now moving over to this part, what are reasons basically why maintainers don't add these links. And what we also saw that donation links are missing or outdated due to unclear guidance and limited feedback when these links break. In my opinion, I would particularly give this paper a read because it is pretty interesting how the results from the repository URL survey kind of overlap partly with the results from the donation platform URL survey, for example, when looking at these metadata quality issues where, some of these topics are basically identified in both of these surveys. What are the implications? So we, as suggestion made, that improving the visibility guidance and kind of implementing lightweight validation on PyPy could lower the friction and normalize the donation platform metadata without pressuring maintainers. I would like to give one note or one closing note regarding these suggestions. I've recently listened to a podcast of Andrew Nesbitt talking about his research basically on package metadata also in his working group. And I am aware that basically these development life cycles of the package registry or package managers are pretty slow, but I think it's still valuable to know these informations, how basically, for example, these outdated URLs could be solved by basically hinting the maintainers by an email or any notification. Basically, how such functionalities maybe could help these systems in the future. Yeah, maybe as a small outlook, what might be interesting as future contribution to this working group. I quickly mentioned it, I think, in the last presentation already. So I'm working on a impact-related study, to say so. So what I plan to do is basically identifying a subset of libraries which potentially maximizes the impact on the ecosystem if theoretically being supported. Whatever impact means in that situation, I will or can read about talk about that in the future. And then what I basically plan to do is break down these subsets to basically a maintainer set who are responsible for these libraries, and then kind of reconnect these libraries also to metadata results I've already talked about, which are basically responsible for reachability and supportability of these maintainers. So maybe quick outlook, which will or hopefully will come in the future. Yeah, this is basically just one source where the current paper basically is based on this last research. And now I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Amazing, Alexandros. Thank you very much for that. It's also really nice to see a kind of development of research or to see how the research that you presented last year is continuing. And without speaking for others in the group, it's really great to see it develop and kind of build on that. So thank you for coming back, as it were. I have a couple of questions myself, but I wanted to open it out to the floor if anyone else wants to jump in. I think I saw a few in the chat. Does anyone want to start us off? Gerardo, please.
Hi. It's First of all, thank you, Alex, for your research. It's quite an interesting topic. But I was just having here some thoughts about if you have any metrics on what percentage of the PyPy projects that you search were actually having their repos pointing to GitHub, and what percentage of the active repos were actually the GitHub repos they were pointing to. That is, you had reported some stale repos, so that maybe the project had changed from using GitHub into something else, and they forgot to update the PyPy record. And this is important because there's a question about the migration.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you anymore. Maybe, I don't know if it's on my side.
No, I also lost his audio.
Okay.
Hi again.
Now you're back.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Now? No?
Yeah.
Yes?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
It was just a question that might influence the results, is that maybe the PyPy records are not updated and they're still pointing to an old repo of the code. And that creates a sort of an error into your analysis afterwards.
So is your question finished, or do you want to kind of continue?
Actually, yes, it's finished. This is mainly the question.
Okay, so regarding the first part, if I have an analysis, how many of the packages do link to GitHub repositories and also not outdated ones, there is basically a publication only on this part, which kind of motivates the survey for the repository URL, which I didn't talk now in this presentation, but this is part of the paper. So there is basically, if I jump back to these figures, there is basically a similar paper or a paper using similar methodologies, like the one for the donation platform URLs, which analyzed to what extent Piper libraries who link to GitHub repositories. We did not include in the selection of maintainers whether a package would be actively maintained or not, however you measure that. So it's basically taking the emails of the maintainers and then having these 180,000 emails. We basically took randomly a third of these emails and basically try to kind of approach. So we didn't want to approach only actively maintained ones because I think maintained or partly maintained libraries are also a significant part of the ecosystem. So we wanted to kind of get a broad picture of maintainers or participants for our survey.
Okay, but that was not really my question.
Okay, sorry.
The question is that if the project at some point had changed, and so you were looking at an unmaintained repo, although there was an active one elsewhere outside of GitHub.
Mhm.
It's a question about the quality of data in the PyPy records.
Yeah. So no, we would have not catched if basically the repo which is linked is not the real one, which is where the actual development is taking place. No,
Okay.
we would not
Okay.
have able to catch that.
Just so that I can focus
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
one thing. So your source of data was was PyPy and not the actual project pages if they existed. That's
Exactly. We
okay.
started
No problem. Just so it was clear. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Serkan, do you want to jump in with your question? And then maybe at 22 we'll do any other business. Just use the last 2 minutes in this section.
Yeah, sure. Well, my question is that did we collect any information about how much money they raise, the ones that have the link? That's not in the research, right?
No.
Just when we read about the articles on this maintainers articles about, especially the ones that have a story about burnout, that they usually mention that they raise very little money, etc. So was curious about that. And then the other thing is that I was also reading the paper that you mentioned PageRank to understand sort of the criticality of the packages. What was that method? Did we talk about it? You said that even the 1% of the packages have very little links, and then you came up that with a PageRank. What is that method?
Sorry, I think it is not part of that paper. I think it was
maybe somewhere else.
Yeah, so I posted another paper in another working group. But I think like here in this paper, I did not use the PageRank for any selection of libraries, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check the paper again. So that was my second question. If there's a source for that, it would be interesting to check that.
Yeah, so maybe I'm completely confused now, but I'm pretty sure that in this paper I did not use any PageRank. If I did, maybe we get in touch outside, but I'm pretty sure it was not used in that paper, and maybe you read another work of mine where I did use the PageRank for basically package filtering.
Okay, I'll write it in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Thank you.
Great. Well, first off, thank you, Alexandros, for presenting that. I might actually ping you with a couple of follow-up questions I have myself, but in the interest of time, I think we'll use the remaining 5 minutes to just wrap up. I might actually hand over to Dawn if you wanted to talk about the practitioner guide. Please feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've basically been working on a funding impact measurement practitioner guide. So this is something that the CHAOSS project has been doing, and these are guides for practitioners to help them understand some aspect of open source projects using metrics. So the practitioner guides cover a pretty wide range of topics. And so what we did was we took the paper, the academic paper that Paul Kalin, I, along with Mirko Bohm, presented at the OFA symposium a year and a half ago, the one that was in Boston. And so I basically took that paper and pulled out some of the key points and rewrote it for less of an academic audience and more of a practitioner audience. So we have this practitioner guide that's work in progress. So what I would ask of you now is if you'd like to give it a read and give us any feedback for ways that we can improve the guide, that would be helpful. I would encourage you to look at a couple of the other guides because it's kind of a very specific format. So it might help you to understand what the practitioner guides are supposed to look like. But yeah, so it'd be really good to get your feedback on that.
Great, lovely. I think with that, we've just got a couple of reminders to wrap up. For those who aren't aware, there's the Linux Foundation Open Source Summit in North America. That's happening in May 18th to the 20th in Minneapolis. The call for papers has been extended to February 15th. So if anyone felt like applying, might be a very good opportunity to highlight some of the research that we talk about in this working group. Do feel free. Otherwise, I think that's it from our side. Any other business? Anything anyone wants to share? No? Okay, wonderful. In that case, yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Alexandros, for presenting. Thanks for the great conversation. And also special thanks to Adrian for joining us as the new co-chair, which we're looking forward to very much. Cool. All right, everyone. Take care. See you next time.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.